Welcome to Finding Certainty with your host and U.S. Army veteran, Patrick Laing. Over the next hour, you'll learn from Patrick and his expert guests how to attract more certainty into your business and your life. Now, here is your host, Patrick Laing.
Welcome to Finding Certainty. It's a beautiful Friday morning here in Henderson, Nevada. Wherever you are, we hope you're enjoying the same. Very pleased today to have a special guest. This is a unique guest for me because she's usually the interviewer. And today she's in the hot seat. She's my interviewee, Miss Bonnie D. Graham, a.k.a. Radio Red. Bonnie, thanks for being here with us.
Patrick, I'm honored, delighted, and anticipating a great conversation with you. So thank you for the invitation.
Very much looking forward to it. We have a unique opportunity today to hear from literally one of the best in radio, one of the best in broadcasting. Bonnie has so many years of experience. She's done over 50 shows just with Voice America, if you can imagine. I mean, I'm working hard just to do one. She's done over 50. And, I always start out my show by mentioning two main reasons why I've invited this specific guest to be here on Finding Certainty. The first is Bonnie is that consummate expert in connecting with clients, engaging your audience, whether it's branding, whether it's broadcasting, whether it's just personality. She is one of the very best. And secondly, Bonnie has a unique ability to blend her expertise with her personality, with the fact that she brings in comedy, she brings in entertainment. She's actually a stand-up comic. She's a writer. She's a producer. She's a speaker, and she infuses such energy and just vitality into everything she does. You can't help but being drawn to her. So from the moment I first met you, Bonnie, that's how I felt. I thought, we're going to be good friends. And yet we're very different. I'm on one end of the spectrum. You're on the other end of the spectrum. You're a little bit closer to the end of the spectrum. I think my business partner, Frank Hellring, is, where he's higher energy. He's outspoken. He's loud. Now, you're very different from him in ways as well, but you have that energy level and that vibrance that I find myself very attracted to. And I think a lot of people are, obviously, with as long as you've been doing what you've done and as well as you have done it. So thank you again for being here, Bonnie. I really appreciate you making the time.
I'm honored. Are you talking about me? These accolades you just gave to somebody named Bonnie? Is ça moi? I didn't realize that you had that impression of me, Patrick, and I'm actually very, very flattered. And I truly appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to speak with you and share with your listeners and viewers. By the way, are we live streaming, and where are we? On what channels are we being seen right now?
We're being live streamed. We're not live streaming. I record the interview and post it on our YouTube channel and on Facebook and so forth after the fact. So, so anyway, starting out, as I look at you, and all of the accolades are well deserved. This is not just hyperbole. I mean, you are one of the best. And we were talking before the show about how this is a unique experience for Bonnie because she is usually the interviewer, right? She's not typically being interviewed, not on an hour-long show. She's usually the boss, right? And her alter ego, as she calls it, her nickname is Radio Red. For obvious reason, I don't think it's just your hair, though, right? It's your red hair, but it's also your personality. It's also the fire that you bring to these interviews. Is there anything more to the Radio Red alter ego, Bonnie? Do you mind explaining that before we get started here?
Sure. Patrick, thank you for asking such an interesting question. I don't think anybody's asked me that in a long time. The name is actually AKA lowercase Radio Red with a capital R in radio and capital R Red. So one word. And years ago, before I came to Voice America, I started in terrestrial radio on Long Island at AM 1240 WGBB the oldest AM station on Long Island. And then I moved to the internet after I had a car accident. I blew a tire on a major parkway on Long Island one night on my way home from the radio station. I said, there's got to be a better way. I shouldn't be traveling in traffic 2 hours each way to go to a radio show. So I discovered internet, and it was it was Blog Talk Radio, which is basically free and do it yourself. And it was fine. And I was looking at how the sort order. Now, I'm an early woman in tech, Patrick. I started as a programmer analyst coding in COBOL on a Xerox Sigma 6 CP5 mainframe back in, I won't tell you when, in the Key Punch days. No, I'm not as old as Grace Hopper was, but I'm an early woman in tech, and I take that with great responsibility, and I'm honored that I started. So I understood the sort order. Do you have a special character? Do you have a letter, a number? How do you sort things if you're looking at a list? And I realized that the letter A obviously is high in the alphabet. So I wanted to be sorted on the names on this other channel high up. And I saw somebody had used A in front of their name, like a radio host, a something. So I said, well, why don't I have red hair? I didn't at the time, but now I have red drums. I've got red boots I wear everywhere. Okay. I did have a red car at the time, I think. I decorated my room as a teenager in red, drove my mother nuts trying to find red curtains and red rugs and red artwork for the walls, but we did it, and a bedspread. But so I named myself AKA Radio Red, lowercase AKA, continue capital RADIO, capital RED. And I took that as my other brand. When I moved to Voice America, eventually I brought the show. It used to be Up Close and Personal, and now it's called Read My Lips, Cool Conversations with Creatives with AKA Radio Red. And that's the story. Okay?
That's fantastic. Everyone knows you as AKA Radio Red, but I don't know that I'd never heard you tell the story. So thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for asking.
That's great. So, we always start out our show. I hear a lot of guests refer to it as a little bit of a stroll down memory lane. I'd like to hear about your story. How did you get into what you do as this consummate radio host? You've done dozens and dozens of shows over the years. You've literally had audiences of millions of listeners. And before we get to how you transitioned to Voice America, how did you really get into radio in general? You talked a little bit just briefly with the AKA Radio story, but tell us more. Tell us a little bit about who is Radio Red and how did you get to be who you are today?
I grew up very, very shy. I didn't want to talk to people, but at my 6th grade elementary school graduation, I was playing the piano for the whole assembly. I'm not sure how a shy girl was doing that, and I had sewn my own dress in home ec class. We're going back a long time. But long story short, I was invited. I started doing stand-up comedy. I don't know why. I was in a miserable relationship on Long Island. I won't go into those gory details. Long ago and far away, thank goodness. I survived that. But one day I was reading the New York Times, as I tended to do. And it was the real hard copy paper, Patrick, where the ink comes off on your fingers. And I was going through the little reader ads. These are about a half an inch high, and they're just a couple of lines. And it said, would you like to do stand-up comedy? You can be on stage at a major club. Call this number. So I said, well, I'm miserable. I cry a lot. I'm in therapy twice a week. That would be an alternative to my miserable life right now. And I cut out the ad. This is all true, Patrick. I cut out the ad and I put it in my wallet. Okay. So I continued to be unhappy and anyway, crying a lot, blah, blah, blah. And a couple of months later, I was in my wallet and this little ad fell out. And I said to myself, well, this must be an epiphany. I'm supposed to call this number. So I literally called. It was a 212 New York City number. This was Long Island, New York. And I called the number, and a woman named Mary Domino, who was getting to be a well-known comic, and she does commercials on TV. And she was working the phones at Steve Rosenfeld's American Comedy Institute, which is a learning experience type of an organization based in New York. And they teach people how to do stand-up. Standard format, set up and punch, 3-minute routines, 5-minute routines. You look at the blue light. You say, I'm going to get off stage, blah, blah, blah. So I said, are you going to write jokes for me? And Mary said to me, hell no, you're going to write your own jokes. I said, well, how do I do that? She said, sign up for the class. So I enrolled. And I went to Manhattan on a particular, it was 2 nights a week for 3 weeks before your debut. Patrick, it was that fast. I'm getting to the point of what you asked me the question about. So you met with a group of people. There were probably 12 people in a room in a building near the Ed Sullivan Theater where David Letterman broadcast, in one of the working production rooms. They have all kinds of rooms they rent out. And you learn who's the funniest relative you have. Well, what did they do that was so funny? And you learn to put together a routine based on your life. Then you meet with Steve privately, and he helps hone your routine. You meet with the group again, and then with Steve, 3 weeks. You pick one of 3 major clubs, including Caroline's in Manhattan, the famous Caroline's Comedy Club. You invite everybody you know to buy a ticket to be a real audience at the club. And 3 weeks later, you are on stage with a group of 10 or 12 brand new, knee-shaking, OMG, what the blank am I doing with my life on stage at a major comedy club. And I brought a whole tape. My dad was very ill at that point, but he came, and my mother came, and my sister came, and neighbors came, and I filled a table or two. You're standing on stage in front of an audience of about 200 people who paid to hear a comedy club. It's shocking and scary. I think my knees were shaking so much.
In 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks.
Incredible.
Yes, that's incredible. So anyway, they had a professional comic bookend to open the show and close the show. And we learned, don't medicate, don't drink, enjoy the nerves. This is important. Enjoy the nerves. That energy, that adrenaline will make you in the moment. We call it mindfulness today, will help you do your best. So I had my 3-minute routine, scared out of my mind. And it was about being a divorcee for 20 years. And I had a corsage on. I said something like, thank you for helping me celebrate. I'm a born again, and you can fill in the word that starts with V and ends with N. That was the joke. And I'm celebrating my 21 years as a divorcee, something like that. Well, they loved it. People afterwards came up and invited me to do comedy in little basement clubs all over New York. The next thing I know, a friend from the comedy group said, let's do our own troupe. So we started a troupe, and we started doing comedy at Borders bookstores, at public libraries, getting paid in cash or in gift certificates all over Long Island. And I was becoming a stand-up. And then here's where you go. I put a little article into the Great Neck Record, which is one of those local newspapers where it's I call it a glad rag, a happy community paper, nothing too terrible. And I sent them an article. I said, I see that you're accepting articles from local people about what they're doing. I said, I started doing stand-up comedy. Well, they published it, and the phone started ringing. And a woman named Shirley Romaine, who is no longer with us, who is an actress and a host and a Broadway person, had a show called Art Scene on Long Island. And she called me and said, would you come on my public access TV show? The studio is 10 blocks from your apartment where you live, Bonnie. I said, what? There's TV? What? A TV? What? So I went, and she paired me up with a mystery writer, and she said, comedy is an art. Mystery writing is an art. And she had us talking about our different art forms. Then somebody else saw me, and they said, come on my show. And I said, what's going on here? How do you do comedy? How do you do TV? They said, oh, there's an office across the street, public access TV, Long Island, North Shore. I said, okay. So I made an appointment. I went across the street, met the executive director, and I said, how do I do this? They said, oh, we'll train you. Give us $150. We'll teach you. We'll help you put together an intro and an outro. We'll teach you how to do a half-hour TV show. We'll teach you how to recruit volunteer crew who have to be approved, by the way. They have to be trained in how to run a camera, how to do the audio board, etc. And about 6 months later, my first TV show called What's So Funny, with a soundtrack of a laugh track from an audience, with me with a bunch of sheep. They did a graphic of stop motion of sheep coming up and laughing. It was hysterical. And I started the show. Where did I find my guests, Patrick? I found them from my comedy class in New York, from the people I met at the clubs. And then I started taking improv lessons from some high-up people who were in New York. Michael Gelman from Chicago, Second City. 4 minutes to break. I see that. Thank you, Jordan. And this is real-time radio. And I started the show, and I did interviews of people who were character performers. So it could be, here's Patrick Laing, He invented string. Patrick, sit in the chair on What's So Funny. Tell us, how did you invent string? Well, Bonnie, it was the year 20 BC, and I had to put two rocks together, and I saw this cord on the ground, and I invented Patrick. And we talked about what you did, and you looked like a guy who had invented string. And then I'd say, wave goodbye to the What's So Funny audience, and the director would fade to black. Then you go and change your costume, and you come out as a different one. I'm Patrick, and I invented sing-alongs for Mitch, whatever his name was on TV years ago. And then you'd be that character. You came with your characters. I interviewed you. I was like the backwards Barbara Walters. So that's how I got started. And then the general manager of WGBB Radio was on the TV crew of somebody who invited me on their TV show. And she said to me, I want you on radio. And that's how it started. Okay.
That's such a great story, Bonnie.
Isn't that wild?
As I meet with my guests, one of my favorite things about this show is hearing their backstories and hearing what pieces fell into place for it to all come together. And isn't it interesting how it's a domino effect, right? I don't know of anyone who just stepped into their career or stepped into their business or stepped into the spotlight. It was always a series of trials and failures, successes trial and error, successes and failures, et cetera, right? I talk a lot on my show, Finding Certainty, about ripple effects. Mm-hmm. It's like putting a pebble into a pond and those ripples start to spread. The bigger the pebble, the bigger the rock, the bigger the boulder, the bigger those ripple effects. And yet it doesn't usually start as a boulder, right? It starts as a pebble. As I look at your story, I think you were destined to do it. It was your personality.
Oh, stop.
Right? There's those of us who really have to work hard at our craft, and there are those who I believe came by it naturally. It was just what they were supposed to do. Now, that's not to say they don't work hard as well, because you got to put in the time and the effort to open those doors and create the relationships and secure the roles, right? But it just seems to be that was what you were supposed to do. It seems to me that you found your place and the shoe fit perfectly.
Thank you.
We are up against our first break. We do a couple of quick breaks on the show here, but I'm loving this. I'm loving hearing your story, and I knew that you were a stand-up comic, but I didn't know how integral it was in leading to these other opportunities, to the TV and the radio and so forth and so on. So when we come back, let's jump forward and talk about your technology background, because you are not just a comic, not just a radio host, but you are a technology whiz. And your show on Voice America has been running for over a decade. What, since 2011?
2011. Yep.
I mean, technology revolution, the future of now.
Now. You got to fade it down.
That's right. So when we get back, let's go into what that's all about. And again, thanks for being here with us. If you're listening this morning, whether you're a repeat offender, as I say, or you've just stumbled across our show, we appreciate you being with us and helping us as we help you find a little more certainty in your life. We'll be right back.
Follow Voice America at Facebook.com/Voice America for juicy updates from your favorite radio shows and podcasts.
Certainty Management can help create more certainty in your life with our deep discount health insurance options, even for 1099s, part-time employees, volunteers, and more. Pay less to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your team. Call 888-684-3122 for a free quote today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, TEAM, like Mary.com.
Have you become a member yet? Sign up now to become a member of Voice America. It's always free and easy. Plus, you get to take advantage of some great member benefits. Get unlimited access to millions of hours of on-demand content across all of our channels. Keep track of your favorite episodes, shows, and hosts in your own customizable library. Find out what shows you might be interested in based on your favorites. Plus, you get insider access with our newsletter. Membership gives you more. Sign up at voiceamerica.com and click register at the top right.
If you're a nonprofit in need of funding, we can help. Certainty Management is a cost reduction firm that also helps churches, schools, sports teams, and other nonprofits raise unlimited zero-cost funding. Best of all, you don't have to sell anything or ask for donations. Call 888-684-3122 to learn more today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, T-E-A-M, like Mary.com.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
Welcome back to Finding Certainty. We're visiting with the illustrious Bonnie D, a.k.a. Radio Red. I'm really enjoying this, Bonnie. I know I feel honored, because how often does someone get to interview Radio Red, aka Radio Red? I mean, that does not happen, and hasn't for how many years? I mean, when was the last time you were actually interviewed on a radio show like this?
Like this, I can't remember the last time, actually. I really can't. And I'm the one who's honored. We're going to have to stop trading all of these flattering remarks. But I have something to say about you, Patrick Laing. You are a charming host. You are versatile. You are well-versed. You're well-spoken. You know what you're going to talk about. I'm flattered to be in your company today. So thank you for inviting me. There you go.
That's very nice of you to say. I appreciate that. You know, just before the break, we were talking a little bit about your background, how you started in comedy and then got into TV, and eventually that led to radio. And along the way, you've been a speaker, you've been a host, you've done all kinds of things. I mean, you've been a wedding planner, you've been an MC, you're an author. I know you have a book coming out soon, right? It's going to be and I've got to read this so I get it right. It is a almost murder mystery thriller satirical comedy novella. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yes, exactly.
I can't wait to see it. It sounds great.
It won't have my name on it, because if the people who I'm talking about satirically, with the names changed to protect the guilty, I like to say, they would know who I am and they'll come after me. So it's going to have a pseudonym name.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as we were talking about domino effects and ripple effects, and how in our careers, whatever we're doing, right, whether we're an artist or a business person or an athlete, it never just happens, right? There's years and years of effort put into it. I don't know if you've read it before, but I read a book a few years back called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Mm-mm. He talks about how an expert has put in a minimum of 10,000 hours into their craft before they can even begin to be considered an expert in their field. Well, you know, with over 50 live shows with years and years of effort, I know you've put in many more hours than 10,000. And yet you've had such a wide variety of experiences. I mean, you give back to your community. You've worked with music icons like Johnny Mathis and Neil Sedaka and Joan Rivers, Patti LaBelle, B.B. King. I mean, we take up the entire show just for me to read your entire bio, which I'm not going to do. I condensed it down to put into the radio show description because it only gives me so many words, but I had to cut out about 90% of it. So let's talk about technology, though. If you're on the YouTube video, you can see her background says the technology revolution.
And
The
I
future
designed this
of
background. I want to tell you that I designed this in AI in an app called Night Cafe Studio. It's not Midjourney. It's different. And these are microphones inside of hourglasses in a modern kind of a Zentangle background with red and gold as the theme. And then in Photoshop, I put in the text. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to give some credit here. Okay.
No, it's great. It's very it looks almost a little bit steampunk or something like
Yeah.
that. I was
Yep.
looking at it. Is that a safe assessment?
Yep. Anything you say, however you see it, is interpreting is fine, and it goes with a slightly different tone of the red rose I always wear, my branding, and my red mic I always take with me, my Scarlett Solo mic. Yes,
We got to stick with the AKA Radio Red motif,
we
right?
do. Can I clarify one more thing, Patrick?
Go ahead.
When you say I have more than 50 shows, I call them series because these are shows that ran for at least 12 episodes in a calendar year, which is a series. And some of them ran 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, 11 years. And these were shows I did for SAP, the Germany-based business software company whose software runs almost every industry in the world. And I started something called Game Changers Radio. And when I started it in October 2011, all of a sudden people all over the company wanted their own series. And it grew and grew and grew. And I will tell you at one point several years ago, I had 18 series all at the same time. And I was broadcasting 6 hours live a week on the Voice America Business Channel.
That's hard to even imagine. I don't know. I don't know how you did that, but
I did it.
I do think it's a really fascinating story how you and SAP and Voice America entered this marriage, let's call it this relationship, because
Sure.
that's what started you with Voice America. So maybe you can share that piece, talk a little bit about your technology background, but then let's get into this transition because that you said it changed your life.
Well, I'll give you
I've
the
heard
quick
you say that.
transition story. There was a lady named Dr. Marlene Sirsima, who I met at the National Publicity Summit many years ago, and she invited me on her show. It was a talk show on Voice America. She passed away a few years ago, and I was very intrigued by her show, by her e-card, the promo she created, and I thought, when I grow up and I have a little extra money, I want to be on Voice America, and I just put the thought away. One day, shortly after I joined SAP on a marketing team for one of their new solutions, business solutions, my manager got wasn't a call, I guess it was an email pitch from a business channel host on Voice America who'd been there for a long time. And he wanted SAP to be a sponsor of his show. We're talking about some live ad reads on 60 seconds of the host reading and some banners and automated GIFs on his show, on his page.
As a sponsor, right?
As a sponsor, just as a sponsor. And my manager had no idea what internet radio was. She knew nothing about it, and she didn't know whether this was a good ad buy, if I can call it that. And she called me and said, Bonnie, when you joined the team a few weeks ago, in your introduction, you mentioned that you have a radio show. My show was up close and personal. I was interviewing authors it was Blog Talk Radio at the time. And she said, you're the only person I know who knows anything about internet radio. What is it? Can you advise me? And I thought, oh my God, Patrick, heart stopped, not in a bad way. Light bulb went off. And I said, Patricia, can you give me a couple of days? She said, sure. I said, I'll get back to you. I looked up Voice America. I found the CEO and owner who recently left us. We all miss him terribly.
Jeff Spinard.
Jeff Spinard. I found his phone number and I called him. We're talking a phone call from a phone to a phone, not an email, not a text, a phone call. This was cold call. Oh, freezing cold call. This was in early 2011. And I said, Mr. Spinard, my name is Bonnie D. Graham. I work for SAP. You don't know me, but I know about your channel and your station. He said, keep talking. I know who SAP is. I said, how would you like to help me put together a radio show? He said, keep talking. I said, I want to do a thought leadership roundtable show with executives and analysts and other people talking about technology. He said, keep talking. I said, can we do it? He said, yeah. And we started to talk about the logistics. And he gave me some numbers and I said, thank you. I went back to my manager and I said, Patricia, you asked me for my input on this possible sponsorship. I said, don't do it. I said, I tell you what, if you give me about 30% of the money that the sponsorship would require, I can produce and host for you and SAP a 13-week pilot of a concept I have. Patrick, I have no idea where in my depths of my humanity this ever came from. I was talking like somebody was standing on my shoulder telling me what to say. I had never done anything like this in my life. And I said, let me come up with a radio show. 13 weeks, give me a pilot. Let's see what happens. And she talked to her team from Germany and her colleagues from the UK and her colleagues from Canada and her colleagues from everywhere around the world. And they all had a different take on it. What? Seriously? No. Yes. Sounds good. Not sure. And she came back to me a few weeks later. She said, let's do it. So we noodled, we brainstormed, and we came up with Breakfast with Game Changers. We liked the word game changers. Well, we changed it later on. You like it? We came up later with Coffee Break with Game Changers because we decided a lot of people don't have breakfast, but everybody has coffee, or they know somebody who has coffee. October 5th, 2011, the show debuted on the Business Channel. I had 3 guests lined up talking about business mobility, not mobile phones, mobility, that concept. 1 showed up. 2 were in Europe and got the time mixed up, or they were busy skiing or something. It was 30 seconds before live, my first show for SAP on the Voice America Business Channel. And this is before Me Too. Nobody get upset. This is funny. And I said to this gentleman whose first name was Dan, Dan, honey, follow my lead. We're going to talk for 1 hour about mobility. And he said, Bonnie, honey, I'm with you. And we did. I never went back and listened to that recorded show, Patrick, because I didn't even want to know how it went. But it was my trial by fire. The second week, the guest showed up. The third week, the guest showed up. 4th week, I got a call from Patricia. She said, I need to talk to you. And I figured, oh, dear, she hates it. It's a flop. It's just going to die out after 13 weeks. She said, I love it. Go big. I'm funding you for the whole year. Let's go full tilt with Coffee.
Nice.
I said, what? Seriously? So I started sending out emails. I'd only been with the company for about 6 months at this point. I send out emails. Desperate woman of radio needs introductions to business leaders, to executives, to managers, to analysts, to academicians, to anybody, entrepreneurs, serial tech people, anybody. And people started coming and saying, oh, I know somebody, I could do this. And I started coming. The next thing I know, one of the teams who were doing solutions for cloud, which was in its early days at that period of time, said, we want a show called In the Cloud with Game Changers. I said, fine. So I went back to Voice America and I said, I need another time slot. What, another time slot? We did 21 consecutive weeks of 1 hour live on the cloud. And then the group at SAP that was helping to mentor and sponsor serial entrepreneurs, it was, I can't remember the name of it. It was Startup Focus. They came to me and they said, we want to feature all these wonderful entrepreneurs from all over the world who are doing all kinds of wonderful innovations. So I started a show called Startup Focus with Game Changers, and that ran for another 20 or 30 weeks. And then the manufacturing people came to me and said, we want a show. Within a couple of years, and this was not my job. This was on my own as a paid employee of the company. This was not what my work was supposed to be. So I was doing 2 jobs at the same time because I started to love it. I got a call in 2012 when this started to roll from a colleague, and he said, I have to tell you something about your radio show. I said, what? He said, we're using it to train salespeople. I said, excuse me? I said, why? He said, because you're having conversations. You're not selling anything. These are thought leadership people. You're turning them into thought leaders. You're having a round table, interact. People are talking to each other. We're learning how to talk without selling. Patrick, I know you want to say something. This is part of my journey. Go ahead.
You're hitting on so many points I want to touch on, Bonnie.
Yeah, please.
And they're just jumping out at me. I mean, you talk about starting something on really a lark, right? It was an idea. You didn't know where it was going to go. And how many times have we done that in business or in a relationship? Or a hobby, and we just say, you know what, this is something I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure it out. I think that's the first step in creating certainty in our lives, is being courageous enough, being bold enough to step out into the dark. And then the second piece you said was that, your first show, I mean, only one of the guests showed up and you had to recalculate, right? And that is a critical piece in this, is 1, to step out into the dark, and then 2, be willing to pivot and readjust and reassess. You can't get thrown off your game just because you run into a roadblock, and because they happen all the time. You touched on that point though, just here at the end, where you said that you started building relationships. I believe, and you and I have talked about this, about the value of live radio, really of any marketing, is not to pitch a product. It's not to sound salesy. It's not to constantly be delivering your goods, right? Mm-hmm. It's about building relationships with your audience, with your market. I think that if I had to pick one thing that has defined your career, is that point. Would you agree? I mean, that's what I see in AKA Radio Ready. You have built relationships both through multiple mediums, primarily live radio, but even television and speaking and writing and so forth, poetry even. I mean, the list goes on. You're a digital artist. I mean, et cetera, et cetera. But hasn't it always been about connecting with the listener?
Absolutely. Whoever that listener is, Patrick, whether they're on the other side of a TV screen or they're listening on radio, watching us on your YouTube channel, whether they're in a comedy club listening, wherever they are, it's about conversations. And I recently, by the way, just for people who are watching and see this banner, Technology Revolution, this was Coffee Break with Game Changers. This was the original SAP show. I started in 2011, and I built up an audience of a couple of 100,000 a year. I've retained them, or they've morphed into other people. But the point is, when I departed from SAP at their request, when they were doing reorg, that's what they called it, in 2019, I went back to Jeff Spinard at Voice America and somebody else who was working there. And I said, help me retool, re-ready this show, because I'm not giving it up. And we brainstormed for less than 30 minutes on the phone, Patrick. And I said, has to have technology in the topic. And I'm tired of the game changers thing. Has to be technology. Well, is it an evolution or revolution? We came up with revolution. And then we brainstormed and we came up with the idea of the future of now. And then Ryan Treasure at Voice America, he does that with the Echo. He's the introducer. He's no longer at Voice America, but that's his voice. And
is it really? Jeff Spinard is your voiceover on that. I didn't. No.
Ryan Treasure, not Jeff.
Okay.
Ryan Treasure did it, and the three of us came up with this in less than 30 minutes. We didn't have to pay a company $20,000 to come up with new branding. And it's still at about $200,000 a year, give or take. And now I've added live streaming. We have a LinkedIn audience, Facebook, YouTube, and I'm very proud of this. And this show, I have to tell you, was number 6 on FeedSpot's top 70 technology shows. They call it podcasts. I call it live radio, to listen to in 2023. I have no idea how they found me, but Patrick, talk about a thrill to be recognized.
Well, it was also top 10 on top 10 business and tech podcasts for entrepreneurs by Aplandio.
Yes, the year before. I have no idea how they found me. Warsaw, Poland.
Pretty significant designations.
I have no idea. I know.
Well, as we are up against our next and last break, but we, as we look at your journey and how you've woven technology into it, your personality, your comedy, your ability to connect with audiences. If you had to say one thing to listeners, maybe just think about this over the break. We'll come back. Don't go away. We're going to hear from Bonnie. What is her secret sauce? What has she done that has helped engage audiences as well as they have? As well as she has, because that's the secret ingredient, right? That's what we're all looking for in our own interactions, our own marketing efforts. Think about that, Bonnie. I'm going to put you on the spot when you come back and have you answer that question. Don't go away. We will be right back.
Voice America is on LinkedIn. Connect with us today.
If you're a nonprofit in need of funding, we can help. Certainty Management is a cost reduction firm that also helps churches, schools, sports teams, and other nonprofits raise unlimited zero-cost funding. Best of all, you don't have to sell anything or ask for donations. Call 888-684-3122 to learn more today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, Team, like Mary.com.
Voice America programs are now available on your favorite connected device. including Amazon, Alexa, and Google Home. Through streams with Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio, listening to your favorite show is as easy as saying the show name followed by the word podcast.
Hey, Alexa, play Finding Your Frequency podcast.
If that doesn't work, try adding on TuneIn or on iHeartRadio or on Apple Podcasts.
Certainty Management can help create more certainty in your life with our deep discount health insurance options, even for 1099s, part-time employees, volunteers, and more. Pay less to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your team. Call 888-684-3122 for a free quote today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, TEAM, like Mary.com.
Voice America Business Network, the bottom line in business.
You're listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
Welcome back to Finding Certainty. We're visiting with the one and only Bonnie D.
Thank goodness there's only one of me. I had to say that.
Those of us who know you, I don't know if we could handle two, but we are most grateful for the one we have.
Thank you. My mother always said, you don't know when you ask Bonnie to walk into the room, you don't know what's going to happen. There you go.
Don't know what you're going to get. Well,
that's right.
We've talked a little bit about how you were a trailblazer in technology, one of the first women to really start establishing the industry, both from a marketing standpoint, but also from a strategy standpoint, from a mastermind group standpoint, from an analysis standpoint. I mean, there's so much that you've contributed in that way. You're also a trailblazer at Voice America. I mean, you've literally had as much as 10% of their entire broadcast content is coming out of AKA Radio Red and multiple shows. I mean, you said you had 18 shows at one time going on?
Yep. And then 12 and 15. Yeah.
That's hard for me to even comprehend, Bonnie, honestly.
Me too. But I developed a process for handling it. And Patrick, I like to say my shows are not rehearsed, but they're well prepared. I don't script them. But if I'm doing an intro, I have notes in front of me. I have a Word document on the screen just past my eyes, so I'm never looking down. But just before the break, you asked me what the secret sauce was. And I have to tell you, it's being respectful to and interested in my guests and having a conversation with everybody present, not distracted, not doing other things. That to me makes the conversation better, and that's what attracts the listeners and the viewers. And having topics that have some relevance to the real world, even if it's just a few people. The topic has to be something that's timely and relevant, but the guests have to be, I tell them, it's their job when they come on my shows to look and sound like they are engaged with the topic. They accepted the invitation, they did the prep work, and that will engage the audience. That's what I tell them. They need to be engaged so we can all be engaging. That's my secret sauce. And being happy talking to smart people like talking to you today. That's
100%.
That's my why.
I agree. You talk about relevancy. I think it's a really important comment because take your technology show, for example. You're talking about the technology revolution in really relevant, present, current topics. I mean, I know you're talking a lot about AI. You've looked at drones. You've looked at SaaS. I mean, you've looked at all sorts of different areas they're what we're dealing with today. They are very, very much a part of who we are. I shy away from technology. In fact, my least favorite thing is a technical problem on my computer. I mean, that's what drives me crazy, but I'm more of on the people side, maybe more than the technology side. I do try to take people down memory lane, and I do try to draw out of them a little bit of their story. And isn't it interesting where, and you've heard this before, to your point, you will finish a conversation where the other person has done most of the talking. You've asked a few questions, and at the end they say, well, that was the best conversation I can remember having. Well, it's because you were interested in them, made them feel valued,
yes,
and helped them maybe open up and share what was important to them a little bit. And people love to talk about what's important to them. You're a master at it. You do it every week, multiple times every week.
Thank you.
But it's been fun putting you on the hot seat and seeing you have to reverse roles a little bit and try to do it yourself.
I appreciate that. I recently found out, Patrick, that several guests on a few of the episodes recently on Technology Revolution have started to collaborate on projects between themselves, and they met on my shows. They met on my panels. They didn't tell me. I found out accidentally. Somebody just dropped it in a conversation, mentioned it, and I said, what? Please keep me posted. 2 people are starting a project on, financial education for kids. Another one, 2 people are writing a book on innovation. 2 people are doing something on coding, and one is a project they're raising money for. They're getting sponsors. The other is a book. And I'm thrilled because I tell my guests, talk to each other afterwards. You've got each other's bios. I share their bios. I share their social contacts. Get to know each other. They're meeting for the first time on my panels. They never would have met each other probably. Do you know how
Isn't that great?
gratifying that is? Do you want the quick story of how I got into tech? You don't know this story.
Yeah. Could you do it in 60 seconds?
I can do it in 60 seconds. Young divorcee living in Oregon, needed to earn a living, had 2 kids, living 3,000 miles from family, sent a note to my parents way before email and cell phones and said, please help. They sent a stack of brochures of possible quick professions. I had a degree in psychology, had never had a job. I married very, very young. I'm like 19 years old. And here I was 3,000 miles away. I picked out of the brochure stack computer programmer. I called the local community college. I didn't own a car. I was a young divorcee, 27, 2 kids. I called the local community college. They said, take the bus, 2 buses, come here. I went in. I said, what's this computer stuff? They said, the class is filled, but we guarantee in 3 weeks, 80% of the people who signed up will drop out because they have no idea what it is and they're not interested. Come and audit the class for 3 weeks. Find a chair in the back of the room. I did. After 3 weeks, they made a spot for me. 2 years, 2 associate degrees of science. I aced every class, every homework, and they hired me to be a programmer analyst for a statewide communications system right out of school 2 years later. That's my story.
That's incredible. And you see you're in Oregon. Where in Oregon exactly?
Eugene. I was in Eugene.
All right. Home of the Ducks.
Running capital of the world. Mary Decker Tab was there. Yes, University of Oregon was nearby, but this was Laing Community College. And that got me started on I had a babysitter for the kids, and I eventually got a car, and I took a bus to school, 2 buses to go there and back, and I created a life for myself and my children. There's
amazing.
My story.
You know, I have long ties. I lived in Oregon for 12 years. 4 of my 5 children are there. My daughter's in Minnesota in dental school, but 2 of my kids went to U of O on scholarship. My daughter was a gymnast for the Ducks.
Really?
So, yeah, we got good ties there.
Didn't know.
So we are coming toward the end of the show, and I'm always amazed how fast it goes by. When I first started out, talking about preparing versus scripting and so forth, I remember the first show I did, I'd been invited to do this 13-week pilot by Robert Cellino. And I don't know if you know my story. I was a guest on Voice America myself the first time. And they were interviewing me. I was on Frank Hellring's show, and that's when he and I met. And he was interviewing me on what we were doing to help raise zero-cost funding for nonprofits. You know, we realized that we could do more than just make income. We could actually make a difference. We could use what we're good at, our profitability expertise, and find dollars, literally raise unlimited funding for nonprofits. You talk about how guests have met on your show. I met a couple of your guests on the Next at the Mic show I was on with you, and we're talking about raising funding for their nonprofits. So, so I'm a testament of that. It's absolutely true. But anyway, so That first show, though, I had it all scripted out. I had the questions I was going to write. I had it on the screen. I decided to interview Frank, kind of reverse the roles on him and have him as my first guest, and I had it all planned out. Did that the first 2 or 3 shows, and then one time I was short on time. I didn't have any time to prepare, and I showed up and just winged it. Mm-hmm. And do you know that was the best show I had done?
I bet.
And I saw my future, I guess you could say, on Voice America, of the style I wanted to have. It was just so much more natural and off the cuff and real, and wasn't stilted or canned or anything else. I mean, you have a really unique ability in your interviews to sound, one, you are in charge. It is your show. You're the host. But you have such an ability to engage with your guests, and you have this banter and this exchange that goes back and forth. And it reminded me of something. Don't you think that's an important interaction with our listeners as well? Not just guests, not just as a host and guest, but with our listeners, with our audience, with our customers. How do you think we can do that better as business owners? How can we have that exchange and that reciprocity, that interchange and that exchange and that back and forth? I say banter, but it's more of a it's a relationship, right? That's happening right before your eyes. Do you have anything else you would add to that? I think that's something that listeners would really love to hear.
Start a conversation. And I will tell you that I don't have questions for my guests, my panelists, my futurists. I ask them to send me a fictional TV or a movie, fictional character, quote, or song lyric that has nothing to do with the topic, and then relate the quote to the topic in their own words. That gets their creativity flowing. They realize I'm addressing their expertise on a completely different plane. It excites some of them. It scares you-know-what out of some of them. But then we talk about how they related the quote. I do the research on the movie, the TV show, the song. It creates a conversation because I care enough to come up with the trivia on whatever they selected. Then they send me discussion statements or predictions, and I, on the spot, Patrick, pick a statement and read it and say, could you unpack this? And then I go around the table. Anybody want to have a comment? So I'm creating a live, interactive conversation where everybody feels comfortable. And I have to believe that that's what businesses are looking for, is to engage people where they are, who they are, but a spark of what matters to you. What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite song? Have a conversation that has nothing to do with what you're selling, and just let people know you want to know who they are as a real human being in the moment. That, I think, is the part of the secret sauce of what I do. The roundtables with not the script, but the prep in advance so they know we're going to have a conversation and it's going to be fun. Whoever thought of talking about technology and it's fun? What a shock. Who is this woman? Radio Red? Oh, my goodness. I better go on her show. There you go.
Right. Live, interactive, real.
Yes.
So I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I have a little surprise for you.
I love surprises, I think.
On your technology show, I know you talk a lot about AI. You're a big fan of ChatGPT and other formats, and you, on your shows, you oftentimes start or end with a poem.
Always.
Oftentimes with a little help from ChatGPT, but I did the same in your honor. I've never done this on my show. This is the inaugural attempt at poetry. But I'm going to share it with you now before we run out of time. We're coming up on the end here. So
go ahead.
Okay. Ready?
Wait. Yep, I'm ready.
In a world where laughter reigns supreme, there's a talented dynamo, you'll see what I mean. Bonnie D is her name, with her Radio Red charm, a tech-savvy guru with wisdom to disarm. From her bright alter ego to her roundtable flair, she's a respected thought leader with style beyond compare. With over 50 live series on the airwaves tide, her wit and her wisdom she can't and won't hide. Read my lips, she says often, with panelists galore. Her creativity shines, and we beg her for more. Millions of listeners hang on each word she shares as she broadcasts her tales with unprecedented flair. Editor, designer, she's truly got the knack. Marketing manager, writer, she's always on track. Event producer, director with a flair for the grand, she's coordinated weddings with a steady hand. But wait, there's more to this wonder, as you will see. She's a drummer, a comedian, as funny as can be. Improv performer, MC, and reporter too. I don't think there's anything Bonnie can't do. On boards of directors, she lends her keen insight, giving back to her community and shining so bright. As a poet, she weaves her insights with grace. As a visual artist, she's established her place. As a photographer, too, she's got vision that's keen. With camera in hand, she captures the scene. She's soon to release her first radio-read fiction, a murder mystery thriller with comedic diction. So here's to Bonnie D., a true Renaissance dame. In every endeavor, she stakes her claim. With laughter and talent, she conquers the stage, leaving all of us in awe with each passing page. Voila!
I am close to tears. Beyond honored. Patrick, you have no idea how appreciative I am of what you just created for me. Thank you.
I'll send you the written version as well.
Please do. It's been a pure delight being your guest. I'm honored. I'm flattered. I have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And kudos to you on being an extraordinarily charming and wonderful radio host, Patrick. It's a pleasure to know you. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, Bonnie. Thanks for being on Finding Certainty today. And if you're listening, have a great weekend. Certainty is out there. You can find it, and we can help. Take care. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode of Finding Certainty. We hope you've gained some more insight into how to create more certainty in your own business or nonprofit. Join us next week for another taste of the Certainty Experience. Until then, we wish you greater certainty in all that you do.